Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Everybody got lunch? How's the lunch? Good?
Yes, thank you.
Well, don't thank me. We're going to introduce Paul Heaton with Home Trust, one of the sponsors of today's luncheon. So you can thank Paul and he's going to do the rest of it.
Yes, lunch good. That's a Black Bear Barbecue. They're in River Ridge. Little door there, but the chef there also does like a bunch of interesting things, like live fire dinners for like Maynard from Tool when he came to town. So he does like high-end private coursed stuff, and this is like his, I don't know, barbecue joint. So yeah, I think it's really good. My name is Paul Heathman. I work for Home Trust Bank. I'm celebrating 10 years. I guess I'm in my 11th now, but 10 years. I'm still the new guy at 10 years, though. My boss, Christine Dozier, some of you guys probably know who that is, has been there for like 40 years or something. Don't tell her I made that joke.
But she looks great.
She does. Fantastic. She runs circles around me. So at Home Trust, I think if I were just to point out the unique thing that we've done over the last several years is that a lot of lenders that you work with are Fannie Mae lenders or Freddie Mac lenders or brokers or banks. And we are all for it. We want to have access to as many programs as we can to serve as many people as we can. And that's why we've done that. So it's taken us a while. We only just got Freddie last year. So that's representative of kind of the work we've been doing to try to create a huge broad offering. I am on our on LOTSAR's Affordable Housing Committee. I'm also a liaison to the City of Asheville as part of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I'm on LOTSAR's short-term rental committee, and you're getting ready to hear from Chip a little bit about the work that we've been doing as part of the executive committee and the greater committee for STRs. I'm also on the board of directors of the Home Builders Association. So I'm deeply interested in housing, right? I kind of look back years after doing it and realize that, yes, everything that I'm interested in is really about housing because it's so important to us. So thank you all for coming today, and stay tuned for more of these lunch and learns on all kinds of different subjects that are all going to be useful to all of us. So yeah, let me just say interest rates, oh my gosh, they're down, way down. Thank goodness. They were over 7 really recently, and I just locked a 6.125. So thank goodness, right? I don't know exactly where they're going from here, but all the analysts, the experts think it's down. I think that's probably true. I don't expect them to go down, jump down like they did like anytime soon. Like that big jump is probably what we'll see. It's future rate reductions for this year already built in, I think. Okay. So I did a little math. It amounts to like $4,000 or $5,000. It's a huge difference in payment from 7.25 to like 6.125, right? And not only is it just going to make some people feel better, it's also going to like some people are going to qualify for a house now that wouldn't otherwise qualify. So yeah, it's huge. All right, Chip. Awesome. Come on up.
I figured I couldn't go through this.
Chip knows all about short-term rentals because you've been working in them for a long time.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned this 10-year anniversary. I forgot. Right, it's our 25th year right now. So this is our 25th year. I'm the owner of Graybeard Realty. We do property management. We manage a little over 500 long-term rentals and a little under 500 and a little over 250 short-term rentals. And I wanted to let y'all know about our short-term rental alliance that Paul mentioned. It's called the STR Trust. And we started 2 or 3 years ago. Our friends at Yonder luxury rentals. Graybeard's a sponsor of this, and Yonder is also a sponsor of this event, and they couldn't be here today. But we went through LOTSAR and started this alliance, and you can go to our website just by Googling STR Trust, Buncombe County or Asheville. But we have quarterly meetings, and we try to do all things short-term rentals. We had safety meetings, top 10 risk of short-term rentals. We've developed a good neighbor policy, how to be good neighbors to the people around you. We had guest speakers. We've had lobbyists from Airbnb on a national and on state level. Same with VRBO. Same with our organization is called VRMA, Vacation and Managers Association, and we've had lobbyists from those groups. Anyone's invited to be part of this. We have individual homeowners, we have investors, and we have brokers. And we'll cover any topics that you want to. The next meeting is February 15th. I'm sure we'll be talking about what the county's doing and the same topic. But our original content was going to be how to work with homeowners association and be good neighbors to homeowners association. So I encourage you to attend. You can go to that website and sign up, and you'll be on our mailing list. One of the things that we did in 2021 was we did two different studies through LOTSAR. We got grants, and we did a study on STR's impact on affordable housing in Buncombe County, and we did economic impact of short-term rentals in Buncombe County. The affordable housing showed no correlation. They couldn't find any measurable correlation. And then the economic impact was huge. It was over $600 million in direct impact in the county from short-term rentals. The TDA has formulated various information. One of their things is 49 of available overnight rooms in the county are short-term rentals. And then on the sales tax, the county has calculated the sales tax. The use tax, occupancy tax that's collected from short-term rentals, and it represents 35% of the overall tax collected. So we are a pretty big player. We are in the process of updating those studies and hope to have those done by the end of the month. So anyway, I encourage y'all to be members, and thank y'all for being here today and for your interest. And I'm going to turn it over. This has been complicated. I think I'm turning it over to Brian.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Make sure I note that both Yonder, or the three of us, yeah, and we all sponsored lunch together for today because you're such a big, wonderful group. So, yeah. All right, David, I'm gonna hand it back to David. Thanks again.
Paul. Thanks, Yonder and Graybeard also for lunch. So now our speaker, Jillian Phillips, is with us from Buncombe County Planning Department. She's the long-term, long-range planning manager. Right? So, and by the way, you guys just got some kind of award from the State Association for your work on the comprehensive plan, which I thought that was great. So
we got an
2
award
awards, right?
for the overall comp plan and an award for community.
That's great. All right. Come on, Dave.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Jillian Phillips. I'm the Long Range Planning Division Manager for Buncombe County. I have worked for Buncombe County for 16 years, so I've been there quite a while. I was there the first time we talked about short-term rentals, and it's come back, and we're going to talk about it again. So just to let you know, this is the first module for a set of text amendments we will be completing per the adoption of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan, if you ever want to fall asleep real quick, it's a 200-page document, but we also have a shorter executive summary. We call it the 5-minute plan. But there are a bunch of actions and policies that came out of that public engagement process, which was 2.5 years long, that we now have to implement. So the first step in adoption of the comp plan for development regulations is text amendments. Short-term rentals is the first one, but then we have 5 more. And at the end of the process, we'd like to create a unified ordinance and modernize our ordinance. If any of you have ever looked at our ordinances, we have about 5 or 6 different development reg ordinances. We want to unify them into one ordinance. Second one will be mixed use, design standards, missing middle, affordable housing and transportation. Third one will be planned unit developments and conditional zoning. Fourth will be environment, energy and safety. And fifth will be economic development. And this should take, we are guessing, about at least 5 years to get through all of those 6 modules. Just to give you a snapshot, and again, the actual comprehensive plan is very detailed. If you don't take a look at the actual comprehensive plan, I suggest you take a look at the 5-minute plan. But these are the policies and actions in the comprehensive plan that are guiding the proposed regulations for short-term rentals. So you see the GEC stands for our Growth, Equity, and Conservation chapter, and that is our land use and development regs chapter. And action 5 is mitigate the loss of year-round housing to short-term rentals. And then economic development policy 2, provide adequate housing options for all income levels. So I know some of you were there at our first planning board meeting discussing this. Given the interest, this is the proposed timeline right now for short-term rentals. But I will say that March 4th probably won't be the public hearing because we are trying to get Ferguson Auditorium at AB Tech and it is not available that day. But the public hearing will probably be sometime in March. On January 22nd, we're going to have a meeting at 5:30 at Ferguson at AB Tech, and that's a listening session to hear for the planning board to hear public comment. On February 5th and February 19th, we're going to have board work sessions with the planning board so they can really look at the proposed language and provide feedback and request us to make changes. There will be no to little public comment, and that is to give the planning board an opportunity to work on the text of the proposed ordinance changes. But then again, when we have that public hearing in March, that will be another chance to provide public comment in a large scale. And at that public hearing, they vote on the proposed text amendments and make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And then you would have another public hearing for the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners are the ones who actually change the ordinance. Planning Board is just a recommending board. And one of their jobs, as outlaid by North Carolina general statutes, is to review and make proposals regarding text amendments. So just a process overview, and if you remember, there's 6 of these modules. We're only in the first one. It's a 5-step process. We created an interdepartmental committee to provide technical feedback. We incorporated the equity analysis tool in the comprehensive plan, and it includes meetings with planning board and commissioners prior to public hearings. So let's talk about existing short-term rentals now. And I want to clarify that these are only proposed recommendations. Until we get to the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Commissioners votes on it, it doesn't change. Nothing changes. It's just a proposal for planning board to discuss. So pre-existing short-term rentals, which do not meet the proposed requirements, could continue to operate based on these standards. Owner must apply for a zoning permit to establish the STR as a legal non-conforming use. The STR must be located within a structure that is approved for habitation. And what that means is we've had a couple incidences of people converting sheds without permits, people renting out RVs that are not properly hooked up to electricity or to waste water control. And we've had some incidents of fires in those structures. So that is what that means. If it is a structure that is approved for habitation, it can be grandfathered in. Okay. Grandfathering ends if the home ceases to be used as a short-term rental every 6 months, and that's, you have to rent it out 2 days, 2 consecutive days of short-term rental every 6 months, every 180 days, or if the property is transferred by deed. So if you have an LLC and you change around the LLC membership, that's not a transfer by deed. Just a transfer by deed is what ends the grandfathering. And this is a proposal. This is what the planning board's going to discuss, and the regulations probably would change between now and when it gets to the Board of Commissioners. So a summary of proposed text amendments: limit use of homes for short-term rentals to commercial districts and allow what we used to call vacation rental complexes in open use. So NSCS, EMP, PS, and CR, and then open use. Change definition to allow short-term rentals only in single-family detached units. Again, that's that issue we're having with RVs and sheds and people renting out their apartments as short-term rentals and people renting out manufactured homes and manufactured home parks as short-term rentals. So that's just limiting it to single-family detached structures. Lower maximum gross floor area that can be used for a short-term rental. Clarify the definition of a short-term rental. Prohibit short-term rentals in manufactured home parks and where density bonuses are provided. Create special requirements for short-term rentals in permitted districts. Provide that zoning permit process to grant legal status to pre-existing non-conforming ones. And then 2 nights every 180 days to continue that non-conforming one, and transfer of the property of deed can end the grandfather status of the non-conforming short-term rentals. So those last 3 are talking about the existing ones, that if the regulations pass, that's what they would be subject to. They wouldn't be subject to the new regulations, but any new short-term rentals going forward would be subject to the ones at the top. So some of the proposed requirements for new short-term rentals: parking, solid waste disposal, spacing between units, bathrooms, signage, management, addressing, access, buffering, not allowed in those manufactured home parks, and places where the ordinance allows density bonuses. So that's our plan unit developments, our conservation subdivisions, community-oriented development, which is our affordable housing incentive. So those types of developments where we're allowing a density bonus, a short-term rental would not be allowed. Limits on event sizes, occupancy number, and type of structure that can be used. So that's about it for what I have, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Can you go back one slide? What does management mean? Like, you have to pay someone to manage it, people can't manage it themselves anymore?
They can manage it themselves. They just have to provide the department, when you apply for your short-term rental, you provide the department with the contact information for that management.
This type of structure, I mean, like, you have like a garage apartment or a separate.
So it has to be a single-family detached structure. So a garage apartment would be considered a single-family detached structure.
Like, you can't room, like, what if someone had like a basement that they were renting out?
You cannot.
You can't do that short term.
No.
Unless but you could do a homestay.
You cannot do a homestay. City of Asheville allows homestays, but they don't, from my understanding, and I might be completely wrong, they don't allow full house rentals.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be the opposite. We are going to allow full house rentals, but not allow homestays.
Could you tell us what the impetus behind that decision is? Like, what's the thinking behind that?
Allowing
The single family homes, the full home, and not the homestays.
and not the homestays. We talked to a lot of jurisdictions. Homestays are very hard to regulate. And we are trying to establish these in commercial districts as a commercial use, like a hotel.
So just to clarify, you're saying you can do a vacation, but only in the commercial.
Yes. And open use, you can do what we used to call vacation rental complexes. So if you have complexes, if you have 3 cabins on 20 acres, or it doesn't have to be 20 acres, but that's a lot of what happens in open use, that would be allowed.
And the no manufactured homes, is that only in parks or even if it's a manufactured home on a park
No manufactured homes
at all?
at all.
And do ADUs, are ADUs considered a single family detached?
If they are detached from the structure,
So an accessory dwelling would be.
yes.
Would it be possible to get a copy of this deck, just in the interest of being present, but afterwards?
I can provide it to Lotzar and they can.
Can you say what the thinking is behind the manufactured home rentals?
So manufactured homes are considered naturally occurring affordable housing. They're probably the last naturally occurring affordable housing in Buncombe County. And a bunch of policies and actions and goals of the comp plan want to try to protect that naturally affordable housing.
As the group, is there any specific quantitative data that the group has used to tie short-term rentals in Buncombe County to affordable housing?
So I think there was confusion. If you look at the Bowen report and we use those numbers from the Bowen report, I'm not going to remember them over the top of my head. I think of 9,000 units. So we are talking about one of the ways that you address affordable housing is increasing units. So those 9,000 units are what we are, not necessarily what we are short affordable housing wise. They are what we are short units, bottom line. Multi-million-dollar houses, middle-class housing, townhouses, apartments, it's units. So if you look at our next module, we will be doing a lot in that module to addressing the construction of more units, increasing density limitations, allowing more types of development as a use by right. So it's part of a policy direction to increase units.
And is there a reason why short-term rentals being addressed before delving more into?
So just to note, while we're doing short-term rentals, we're working on the second module. While the second module will be going through Planning Board and Board of Commissioners, we'll be working on the third module. So we are working on all of these at the same time. The sequencing was based on discussions we had with management and the commissioners.
How will event size be regulated? Will it be size of property, size of the house, bedrooms?
It will be a limitation on the number of people allowed at that event. So this is something we get a lot of complaints from the planning department regarding short-term rentals. We get a lot of people who rent short-term rentals and then have extremely large events. May it be a wedding, may it be a retirement party, that sort of thing. So right now, I think that number, what we're proposing is 12, and it'll be up to the planning board which direction they want to go. It's also a concern for the fire marshal because it's a fire safety issue.
If the primary driver is to assist with affordability, then what is the reasoning for not allowing short-term stays in someone's basement?
So it is, the primary driver is to increase number of units available, which in turn addresses affordable housing. If you have a healthy house, you guys know this, if you have a healthy housing market, that helps with affordable housing.
And so does somebody who's in the market and looking at retirement and they want to rent out their basement apartment to assist in them paying increasing property taxes and such. So if the house is owner occupied, what's the reasoning behind not letting them?
So I will say, I mean, if this does not stop you from renting out a garage apartment or a basement rental or your, a townhome that you own. It just disallows a short-term rental. It would allow a long-term rental. Any rental over 30 days.
It's a restriction on people's ability to stay in homes that they're already in.
Yeah, I think, and the restriction on property rights for sure. But I certainly know people who are open to renting a space for certain periods of time, but don't necessarily want a full-time resident living under them all the time. So it's not an either or for them. It's
Okay.
an either or nothing for them.
What's the occupancy number? I'm sorry.
So the occupancy number, and again, this is a proposal, has to go before planning board, is in regard to septic systems. A lot of the complaints we have gotten are about overcapacity at septic systems for some of these vacation rentals. So that will be in regards to septic systems. How many bedrooms is it approved for? How many occupancies? How many people can you have in the unit?
And will that go with like the county's regulation already for what a septic system should be able to handle, or
Mhm.
is that
Yes.
per bedroom?
2 per bedroom.
Would I have it right that the decisions made in the mixed use design standard, missing middle, I mentioned it, density focused. A developer, until we got all of that into the unified development ordinance, wouldn't really be able to benefit from any of those changes, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like short-term rentals, no regulation regarding short-term rentals changes until the Board of Commissioners holds a public hearing and votes on it. The same with those mixed-use design standards, missing middle, affordable housing. and
So the timeline that you mentioned, none of this really is gonna be implemented for.
Well, as soon as they pass the regulation, we will change the ordinance. And we will keep changing. We will have those 5, 6 separate development ordinances through this whole process until we get to the unified ordinance step. And at that point, we will put them all together in a unified development ordinance like the city of Asheville has.
But STRs will be voted on soon. After March sometime.
My guess is after March.
But it would go into effect independently, or?
Yes. Each module will go into effect independently. Module 6 is just for us to smush them all together. It's more a legal modernization, simplification step than actual changes to the ordinances. The changes to the ordinances are through those other 5 modules.
What's the research we've done about zoning out manufactured housing for the length of time in the county and its effect on affordability? A, what's the research that we've done in terms of the zoning that we're allowing things like single wides in today? Because basically when I look at this Bowen National Research Report, their singular addressing of the issue of manufactured housing is from something from 2011, meaning it's almost completely absent the most affordable housing stock that we have, and the fact that we zoned it out for the length of time that we did, and yet we're basically making a statement that we're gonna address that through short-term housing, yet we zoned out the most affordable product for so many years that we created the problem ourselves. Why is that missing?
So I know the cities and the towns do have some restrictions on where affordable housing can go. We allow, where short-term rental, where manufactured homes can go. We allow them in our residential districts. I'm trying to think, let me think, and don't quote me. They always say you need to look at your ordinance before you say something. I'm pretty sure we allow it in all our residential zoning districts. Now, we do require it to be a double wide in some of those, but we do allow it in all our residential
I
districts.
don't think that's accurate, Matt. I think right now for single wides, we allow it in open use.
So
in
single-
R3.
So single wide, that's correct.
Absolute most affordable. So why is it that we're not talking about before taking property rights away from one group with the standpoint of equity being our position, quintupling R3? Why is that not the very first thing we're talking about?
So you are correct with single wides. Some of the districts allow double wides and not single wides. That might be something we look at when we look at affordable housing. What we are seeing a lot is encroachment into manufactured home parks. So
But the assessment has a limited view in terms of manufactured housing. It's practically absent. Its most recent data is from 2011.
Yeah.
So this whole room knows the most affordable housing segment out there is manufactured housing.
And the comprehensive plan
From our discussion.
does acknowledge that.
So we're taking an agenda of equity, tying it from short-term to making housing stock equitable by bringing it away, and we're not addressing it through the most affordable housing stock of manufactured housing.
We will look at manufactured homes in that second module, including manufactured home parks and how we regulate those. Right now, we are looking at short-term rentals and trying to get more units onto the market for long-term rentals or
I
for
believe this
additional
would say
units.
cart before the horse. We should address affordability first and not make a short-term rental agenda before addressing the real problem, which is affordability. And what we're doing is taking rights from one and giving them to another with this position of equity. And yet we have no research that talks about manufactured housing's impact. So it's a major problem, I think.
The organization or the order of the modules being addressed was raised by someone on the planning board at the initial meeting. Is there a chance that the order in which these are addressed is going to get moved based on what the planning board wants to look at?
I mean, the planning board, this order has been reviewed by the Board of Commissioners. And the planning board could request that stuff be moved around, and we would have to bring that back to the Board of
So
Commissioners.
this order is coming, the order of modules is coming from the commissioners.
Well, it's been approved by the Board of Commissioners. They've reviewed it.
I've read articles about areas that address affordable housing by modifying single family zoning. Is that something that's going to be discussed in module 2?
We are one district away from getting rid of single-family zoning in Buncombe County. When we do that second module, that will be something that we look at, and we are going to propose change. We are also going to look at townhomes and duplexes and quadruplexes, you're missing middle housing, and see where we can make those easier to develop in the county.
How do you get grandfathered in? Like, how long do you have to have your short-term rental going? Do you have it, how do you prove that you've been short-term renting?
So you just have to, from the time it passes, say it's April, which we're gonna say it's April, who knows? And 6 months before that, you have had to have rented it 2 days in the last 180 days.
And you can just provide the proof however.
So some of the documents we are gonna put out there to people, but if they have other documents, they can always provide those, and the zoning administrator will make a determination, just like she makes a determination with any sort of zoning question. But insurance, records for cleaning, listings on Airbnb, management, what else records of payment. So sort of any of those things, or all of those things, depending on what you have, you would submit, and we would review them and more than likely approve them.
Does the county have funds and?
We are requesting an additional code compliance officer in the next budget year.
That would make a total of 2 for the entirety of Buncombe County.
We are in the process of hiring one. It would be 3 if we got that funding.
So this is maybe, so when you're saying short-term rental, your definition again is what exactly?
Between 2 and 30 days.
Okay. And when you're talking Buncombe County, if there is a township within that county that has its own space, Black Mountain, for instance.
Black Mountain, Woodfin, Montreat, Biltmore Forest, all of those.
You are not overlaying this on those areas?
We do not have jurisdiction in those.
Okay.
Those areas.
Clarifying.
They have their own development regulations, their own set of requirements for short-term rentals, or they have no requirements, whatever they're doing.
On the grandfathering in, does the zoning person, like, check those records, like they're a 3-bedroom septic, but they've been renting to 16 people or something? How
So,
that
so
kind of
the proposed standards, the current existing non-conforming uses, the current existing non-conforming short-term rentals, if it passes, if they have to be grandfathered in, are not held to those current standards. They are held to what is in place now. Now, if you're constantly having 16 people stay in a 2-bedroom septic house, it's probably going to cause issues. Someone's probably going to call environmental health on you. Environmental health will probably go check it out.
In terms of the proposed permitting process, what is going to be the process for ensuring that there are safe situations and not someone who's got, you know, 3 sets of bunk beds in a basement room that's got no window or emergency egress? I see it a lot. What is going to be put in place in terms of making sure that the units that are grandfathered in or get permitting have those safe living?
So if it's a violation of current fire code or environmental health standards or building code, that would be, those departments would go look at it.
So that's built into the potential permitting plan that there are going to be safety.
We are just permitting the zoning use, and we are a complaint-driven department. We are not the city of Asheville. I'm not sure about the other jurisdictions, but they have code compliance officers that sort of go and do inspections on a regular basis and look for it. So if a citizen complains, we will look into it. So if you as realtors acting as our partners, there are short-term rentals where it is unsafe situations and it might violate fire code or building code or environmental health, my suggestion would be to contact our department so we can go look at it.
You said deed transfer. You're talking about deed transferring from like an individual to an LLC. If an individual transfers it to their LLC, that wouldn't be a deed transfer if it has the same manager on the LLC as.
So it's whether or not a deed is filed. So if they went about it with filing a deed, that would trigger it. But if they didn't, from my understanding, and again, I might be wrong. From my understanding, like say you own property, you transferred it into an LLC, that wouldn't require a deed, that wouldn't trigger it. That would require legal work, but not registering it not registering a deed at the registry.
Okay. Have any questions? Making a deed isn't a sale, it's knowledge. We'll talk about it later. Lots of days later.
Got a lot of questions for you there.
Can you go to the next slide, please? Right, yeah, that's right.
The next one. Let me just note before we move on, March 4th will probably not be the public hearing because we can't find space. I'm assuming do you want to look at these?
That one, yes, thank you. So if you have a home in an open use district, you can have a homestay.
If you are currently operating a short-term rental in open use, and if you're currently operating a homestay, I know there are homestays out there. If you currently are operating one, it would be an existing non-conforming use and could be grandfathered in. Going forward, open use complexes, if you're building 3 cabins on a lot, or if you're building, if you buy an old campground and there's a bunch of cabins on there. So that would be allowed. But individual houses in individual neighborhoods would not be allowed to be short-term rentals.
So if you're building a home that's your primary residence and you included a basement apartment and an upstairs apartment,
you can only do it in single-family detached.
you can't use those spaces.
So say you buy 20 acres out in open use, you build your home, you can build 3 cabins and do a vacation rental complex. We're not calling it, it's not gonna be called a vacation rental complex anymore, but it's what we call it now.
And you have to get a special permit to use it.
You do have to get a special use permit. You currently have to get a special use permit for complexes.
One of the most kind of comprehensive studies I've read about STR impact was done in Los Angeles. And they're certainly very different than we are, but they know that not only are they not managing the regulation or enforcement very well, or haven't ever been able to, that they're getting worse at it. And there feels like they're maybe a little more resourceful than we are, but do you think that we've estimated properly here? You have the support, you mentioned, hiring somebody else, but like, is it realistic to think that this is even enforceable?
As far as
Just all the new rules, what's happening right now? Like you mentioned homestays, you don't even know where the homestays are because they're hard to regulate. So like, what's really gonna change in the future?
So that's why we added the thing about the process for existing non-conforming ones and any new ones. Like right now, you are not required to get a zoning permit for a short-term rental in Buncombe County. So you can, if you call us up, or if one of you call us and says, hey, can I do a short-term rental there? We say, yeah, that's great, that's fine. And that's the end of it. You don't have to get a zoning permit. With the new regulations, you have to get a zoning permit and make sure, so we can make sure that you meet those special requirements before you can operate it.
So it's up to the homeowner to reach out to the county to ask.
Well, it's any use in the county, it's up to that person to reach out and make sure that they are going through the proper channels and getting permitted correctly. And the big if the regulations do pass, when we send out the property owner tax notice in August, we are going to add an insert about the new short-term rental regulations and about grandfathering of existing ones.
What are you defining commercial use? Commercial district.
Commercial districts, so they are existing primarily commercial districts. We're a little different than Asheville. We don't have Euclidean zoning in Buncombe County, which means we don't have just single family districts and we don't have just commercial districts. Our commercial districts allow residential uses. So NSCS, EMP, and PS, and CR is our conference center resort district. And you all know open use is sort of a hodgepodge of allowing most things. But those first 4 are primarily commercial districts, allow the most uses in terms of commercial. And just to make you aware, we have a conference center resort district, and that is our big sort of unique Buncombe County uses. Biltmore Estate, YMCA, Blue Ridge Assembly, the Cove, so sort of Ridgecrest, those are zoned a conference center resort district.
This could be a remedial kind of question, so I apologize if so, but it's 2 to 30-day rental, but then to keep the non-conforming status, it's 2 nights. Wait, 2 days? Is that what you mean?
So
one night? Or?
2 nights, you have to rent it at least 2 nights every 180 days.
Got that.
That is the current definition of a short-term rental in our ordinance. So you're talking about 2 sets, new ones, and then the grandfather ones.
But the new ones, that's 2 days. Does that mean one
No,
night?
this is legal non-conforming.
Right, I meant the clarity of the definition of short-term rental is 2 to 30 days. Does that mean 2 days is one night?
That's a good question.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, in other words, I can't do 30 one-day rentals. Right.
Technically not.
Okay, just asking. Yeah.
That would be a long term.
Yeah.
Well, okay, sorry, 15, whatever.
Yeah.
So the zoning permit process that you were talking about to get legal status on pre-existing, is that something that people should do now so that it's considered grandfathered in? Is that once things pass, they'll have an open window to go through that process?
Yes, once it passes, it will be online through our permitting portal. I don't know how many of you deal with the development end of it, but if you're applying for a permit for a single family house, or you're applying for any sort of type of development in Buncombe County, you can do it online through our permitting portal. And that is how we would do these grandfathered short-term rentals.
And so as long as they've met the, like, 2 nights every 180 days and the septic requirements and all of that,
Mhm.
there shouldn't be an issue, even if they are in a non-conforming zone,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Buncombe County creates some kind of a cheat sheet on all this. I'm not gonna remember all.
So if you give us some time, we do have sort of an outline of the proposed regulations in our memo to the planning board, which is on the Engage Planning Board website. But once we sort of review the proposed language with the planning board and get feedback from them, and we will probably at that point send something out, which is, this is where it stands now. We're just reluctant to do that right now because the planning board hasn't discussed these regulations at all.
It feels to me like the result of this, the efforts towards helping with, lower cost housing and more available rentals for year round may be outweighed by the actual negative impact on the property owners who currently run short-term rentals. Like the goal of it may not actually result in what you hope it will, but it's going to impact the people who have short-term rentals across the board.
So just a note, people that have short-term rentals currently can keep operating their short-term rentals.
But it also minimizes potential for people who are coming into the communities and spending money to have this as an option to be able to afford the home that they want. It's got nothing to do with large corporations buying up properties, that sort of thing, especially when we're talking about the homestay portion of this. And is it being discussed at all that, and I go back to what the gentleman across the room said about it being in a reverse order of actually addressing the issue. It feels like short-term rentals are being targeted as the easy mark, but it has a huge impact on people's own property rights. And is it being discussed that there may need to be further research on what the result of this action will actually have on homeowners?
So I'm sure the planning board, I'm sure that will be part of their discussion, how it affects all the parties involved, those coming into the county, those currently in the county, our tourism industry. They, lots of times when we are doing text amendments, will ask for additional information or additional data. So that could be a possibility. Like Nate said last time, we have to start somewhere. And this is where we're starting, so.
There's still discussion at the county about increasing property tax rates on short-term rentals.
I have no idea. That is not my wheelhouse. You can schedule Keith next month if you would like.
I find it interesting that all this was launched 1 week after the official filing period for whether you wanted to run for a commissioner position or office first. Second, I find it fascinating that there may or may not be any political repercussion for commissioners because they may or may not actually be running for re-election. I think that we have a pre-planned situation that we're trying to force through under the terms of affordable housing, and we're putting the cart before the horse first. I think we've actually not done any research about the real affordability problem, which is the lack of manufactured housing which we zoned out ourselves. And I think everyone in this room should get this housing needs assessment from Bowen National that's being spoken up over and over and over again in all of these dialogues, because you will be fascinated that it is absolutely missing from this report to discuss anything about manufactured housing. I'm fascinated that we don't talk about inefficiencies within our own development department, and I think it comes back to what this gentleman said, how can we actually do it when we can't do something like kick housing out for 6 or 10 months to get through the zoning process? So I think there's a lot of other ways that we can address this issue before short-term rental and taking rights away from half the people in this room. So that's just me speaking, and I'm saying this to all crowd.
One other thing about that Bowen report, and we'll highlight that, the numbers that they use for short-term rental is incredible. It's like a one bedroom will gross 81,000 a year or something like that. I mean, the numbers, well, I think what they did is they took the 2 nights and then assumed 100% occupancy. And the 2 nights are like the highest they could find or something, because a 4 bedroom is over like 250,000 or something. So we're not that good.
Another thing I think that needs to be pointed out too is we're talking about probably a lot of service providers in our area who have that lower income level, who are looking for housing, and it's a real thing for sure. At the same time, the short-term rental market absolutely contributes to the local economy in such a way as to allow them to live here and to make their livings. And that certainly extends to the people who are cleaning the short-term rentals, the restaurants where people stay in. There's a tremendous positive financial impact directly from short-term rentals on the people that we're also trying to help.
Okay, we got time for about one more question. Unless you got something.
This isn't a technical, can you just go back to the dates?
Okay. So the January 22nd meeting is the only meeting I can tell you for sure is set. And that's at AB Tech Ferguson Auditorium, 5:30. It is on a Monday because our planning board meetings are always on Monday.
Okay, cool. It was initially. At the last meeting, it was a different day, wasn't it?
Yes, but due to the capacity issues we had at the last meeting, that is why we are trying to have those auditories.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, before you go.
Yes, 5:30.